Hello and welcome to China Focus. I'm Shelley Zhang. Now, there's been an uproar in China over a controversial New Year's greeting editorial run by the paper Southern Weekly, which is also sometimes called Southern Weekend. What's so controversial about the editorial? Well, the original version was called The China Dream, the Dream of Constitutionalism, and it expressed the hope that China could be a country ruled by the Constitution and ruled by law. But after it went through the censors, the article that came out in the paper was called We're Closer to Our Dream Than Ever, and instead of talking about constitutionalism or the rule of law, it instead praised the Communist Party. Now, after this was discovered, there was an uproar by journalists and by ordinary Chinese. Here today to talk about the causes and the consequences of the controversy, we have Jason Ma and Chen Shifei. So, after the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was asked about this, the ministry spokesperson said, there's no such thing as, news censorship in China. But despite what the ministry says, there's obviously censorship. Why was this, so controversial?
I think probably they have a different definition of news censorship. I mean, at least for the general definition of news censorship, the Southern Daily was heavily monitored. They said in the last year, 1,034 articles was rejected due to this, which is like every issue, around 20 articles were rejected by this Chinese censorship system. And I think it's a banner. I mean, the Southern Weekly is a banner of Chinese media. And Obama, when he visited China, he personally visited this.
So Southern Weekly, like you said, is known for kind of being a little bit inflammatory. If they get so many articles rejected, then why this article had so much uproar over the fact that it was censored?
Well, if you look at the title, the original title says the China Dream versus the Dream of Constitutionalism. So if you look at the title, actually it's fine if you use it against the benchmark set by the new leader Xi Jinping, because President Xi Jinping had recently spelled out his version of China's dream, which is built upon the rejuvenation of Chinese civilization and development of the Chinese economy. On the other occasion, he also mentioned the so-called constitutional reform, which entails a further political change, the current regime. However, based on my recollection and research, never has President Xi made a connection between the two. Never has President Xi mentioned that China's rejuvenation or realization of Chinese dream will be predicated on the constitutional reform. However, the article by Southern Weekly did take that step, but a giant, tiny step forward. That, okay, one way to effect such a Chinese dream have to come from some kind of constitutional change, which will be deemed huge in the political system in China. It's very sensitive. So in other words, they played some kind of semantic game that was captured by the sharp eyes of the censorship.
Okay, so the person who was said to have changed the editorial, Tuan, who is he's on the standing committee of the Guangdong Communist Party and he's in charge of propaganda. Do you think he kind of acted on his own, that it was his own judgment that this was too much to publish and it had to be changed? At
this moment, there is kind of the Southern Weekly is saying there is an official investigation on this, but from a lot of kind of resource, we guess it's acted out of this person. This is the Tuan. And I think he acted because he really understands what is the higher level really want the kind of article come out. He thinks the government, especially the core leader in China, don't really want see this kind of article to propose the dream of constitutionalism. He thinks that is somewhat the top leader don't want to see. So he just changed the article, and he was as a kind of pretty capable of editors. So he thinks he can just directly work on it. He modified the word, changed the title, changed everything, and that's something very special in this case. I think the kind of the strong reaction from the journalists from this Southern Weekly is because, first of all, they think for somewhat, this article is aligned with the idea of Xi. That's their understanding of the idea of Xi. And so they feel very strong about it. They think they are...
So they thought there's nothing wrong with
Nothing wrong with them. And second, the way they work, like normally it's more like the kind of censorship system just gives them orders, like, oh, this article should be tuned down. They will change the language by themselves. But this time, the language was directly changed by this official. So that's a funding kind of a thing. So first they think there are nothing wrong with their kind of article. Secondly, they think it's too much to really can take over their job. So these two things put together, they kind of start this whole thing. Yeah.
So do you think that Tuan thought that people would notice or that there would be such a uproar? Because this has become like the hottest topic on Weibo now, and people are kind of posting pictures of themselves, in solidarity with the Southern Weekly, and people are like writing open letters to like ask for his resignation.
So, yeah, if I got a chance to answer your previous question, my take would be a little different from Jason, because I thought actually the action might be a representation of the overall kind of verdict from the higher up authority.
So you think he wasn't acting up by himself?
Yeah, if you look at his background, even though he's now only the propaganda chief of the regional government, Guangdong province, actually his previous post was the senior vice president of Xinhua News Agency. Can you imagine that? He actually had established himself as next line up in the leadership of the Xinhua News Agency. So he got to be very good at gauging the official reaction or read the minds of the top leadership. So in this sense, he was not alone in taking this action. His action, like I said, was really a reaction that any higher up would take. So he's very much in line with the propaganda chief of the whole party, not just regional government.
So let's talk a little bit about Xi Jinping's China Dream, because if Xi Jinping, like you said, talked about constitutional reform or rule by law kind of reform, and also is talking about this dream of China becoming like a strong country, like all these things. So is it incompatible? Like, is it not the same for him?
I think from the current situation, my understanding is he talked these two things separately. But really, right now, he won't use this nationalism to kind of as the only thing to unite the Chinese people, because right now nobody believes all the ideology from the Communist Party, and all the other things is not working. So he thinks the only thing can put people together is nationalism.
So that's the China Dream.
China Dream, and so they want to restore the kind of ground, kind of status of China, like they have like hundreds or 1,000 years ago. But the problem is Chinese people begin to realize that without the personal dignity, without the respect of law of everyone in China, there is no this vague kind of ground country thing doesn't mean anything to individual Chinese. So Chinese people begin to connect this the restore of the status of China with the restore of personal dignity. Put this together, they want a rule of law come along with the restore of the status of China. This is something the Chinese leader may not expect it. They think, okay, the people are stupid. I just kind of talk about the restore of China's status. People will kind of so eager to follow me. But no, people saying, yes, we want to restore the status of China, but meanwhile, we want China is ruled by law. Everyone got their deserved respect. So this is something they expected, and they want to control this expectation. They don't want really rule by law.
Do you think that the senior leadership is going to step in here into this incident, the Southern Weekly thing?
I think so. In the opening remark, you mentioned that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson mentioned this, and another message she conveyed was that it's a completely domestic matter that has no foreign significance. However, we were seeing that it had a lot of reactions from the foreign media as well. So things have evolved to such an extent that some kind of top leadership mandate would have to come into play.
And what do you think that will be? Like, what do you think? How do you think they will react to this?
I think probably this thing. If I'm them, I'd be smart. They should be quiet at this moment and let this thing kind of quiet down by itself. And maybe some people in Southern Weekly will be kind of punished for doing this kind of thing, and to again showing like they still need the kind of the authority. They need the authority of this Bureau of Propaganda, because they need this Bureau of Propaganda to keep control of all the media. I don't believe they will kind of really kind of sack this Tuan. And maybe Tuan get famous among some factions in the top leader, and he will be the star in the future. Because always, when you play this kind of game, you make yourself controversial, and then you may be the tomorrow star by kind of promoted by some faction over there in the top leader.
So do you think, let's see, is it going to die down though? Because right now we're recording this on Sunday, and it's kind of in the middle of this kind of Weibo battle going on, and there's even statements on Weibo from some of the Southern Weekly people that they may, stop work.
If history is any guide, I think it will die down eventually,
okay,
because this kind of incident has happened before with Southern Weekly. When President Obama visited there, they had an interview, and they actually took a more dramatic step or reaction in that case, because they kept that space of interviews open, blank. In the newspaper.
So they weren't allowed to publish
they put the article, That's even more remarkable. Eventually, if my memory serves me well, there was some kind of personnel changes, reshuffles within the organization of the publication, but eventually, I think there was no big change.
So last thoughts on this, is there going to be any long-term consequences from this issue?
I think the good thing, the positive part is I think the Chinese leader should learn a lesson. Like right now, the citizenship, the idea of citizenship in China is not something they expected. I mean, they didn't really catch the current status of the people get aware of they are citizens, they are not slaves. So probably in the future, the Chinese leader should do things in a more subtle way instead of this brutal kind of just direct change article. And besides that, I don't expect anything will be really change. They still have very tight control of the media. They still kind of have their own way to manage China. They will just get smart to don't make this kind of stupid mistake. But nothing will change essentially.
These two forces at loggerheads, apparently. The one force is on the part of public that aspires more information. Other side is the government that tries to gag the public, tries to deprive them of right to information. The clash will become more intense, and the day of a showdown will only come closer.
Okay, well, thank you both for joining us and talking about this issue, and thank you for watching. For more on this and other issues in China, join us at ntd.tv.